Welcome to the MHP Exchange Podcast, where industry veterans Frank Rizzo and Eric Busuttil generously share their wealth of knowledge in their new podcast dedicated to the manufactured housing space. They tackle tough questions to provide valuable insights for those considering investments in mobile home parks. If you're seeking answers in the manufactured housing space, this podcast is your go-to resource.
We're back on the MHP Exchange Podcast. Your host, Frank Rizzo, here, joining me, as always, or at least most of the time, Eric Busuttil. How are you today, Eric?
Doing great today, Frank.
Great. And this is going to be a really exciting show. If you're looking at building your mobile home park business, if you're looking at scaling your mobile home park business, if you're thinking about getting involved in investing in the mobile home park industry, you know, this is why we've put this program together. But today we have a guest who, quite frankly, is probably one of the leaders of this industry. He's one of the largest operators in the country, probably top 20 to 30, depending on what numbers you go off of. We have Sam Hales from the Saratoga Group. Sam, for those of you who aren't familiar with him, he only operates about 7,000 lots nationwide, and he manages roughly about $360 million of properties. Sam, I want to welcome you to the program. Thank you for joining us today.
Frank, my head's getting big over here with that intro. That's got to be the nicest intro I've ever had. Hey, it's super good to be on with you and Eric, and I'm looking forward to this discussion.
We appreciate you being here, and there's, obviously a lot of things that we can cover here because, you're a wealth of knowledge, and we've had the ability of talking and meeting, and I've, obviously seen you at a number of different industry events. But interestingly enough, right, you got into the space in 2017.
Yeah.
But you started flipping homes, right? You were essentially speculator, buying residential 1 and 2 families. And what made you just make that decision to kind of pivot over?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a couple things. Number one, that was a ton of brain damage. Right? Every time you have a new home that you're going to renovate and flip, it was like reinventing the wheel every single time because each home was different. We were, very opportunistic. We were looking for stuff that was kind of heavy rehab type homes that we could get cheap. But there was always a new surprise. And so the predictability of that was, I guess if I'd done it for 20 years, probably it would have got more predictable. But as it was, it wasn't very predictable. I didn't like that. I'm pretty engineering background. I like establishing processes and being able to put things in motion and then just kind of let them, kind of tweak it or whatever. So anyway, that was number one. Number two, it just wasn't that scalable. It wasn't efficient, at least. So there's certainly groups that have bought thousands and thousands of homes. But for us, we at our peak had like 150 homes, and managing that many homes compared to I can buy a mobile home park and I can have 150 homes in one location versus driving all over Northern California, right, to see these different assets. So that was, and actually, a third thing though. So when I got into the home, and it wasn't totally flipping. A lot of times we'd renovate them and then we'd lease them out, or we'd renovate them and we'd lease them with an option to buy, or you know what I mean? Things like that.
Sure.
And so but home prices had gone up a lot. So I was mostly interested. I was kind of a cash flow investor. So as those prices go up, rents were going up, but not as much. And so all of a sudden it's we used to be able to buy them at 12 caps, and then it was a 10, and then it was an 8, and then it starts getting, richer than that. And it's I need to find some other place where I can find some cash flow. So kind of all those reasons were reasons I was looking at mobile home parks and found them.
That's so interesting because Eric and I talk about one of the things that we looked at, and I think that's the normal pathway for an investor that's coming in is, hey, we're coming in, you're speccing out 1, 2 family homes. It's a great way to build equity real quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the cash flow on the single family doesn't work. And I think, Eric, we had the same challenge when we were starting out together, was like, how do we get something that could scale, right? And having looked at the MHP space, this was something we took a real deep dive in. Like, what was that for you? Like, what turned you on to MHP, just out of curiosity?
Yeah. So I, maybe I lived in a bubble. I don't know, but I really didn't even know what a mobile home park was. I mean, I was 35 years old. I was like, I didn't know what a mobile home park was. Once I found out what they were, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I've driven by those or whatever. But I was pretty ignorant. But it was actually my banker who had banked me on some of these single family home deals and some other real estate that we've done. And actually, it's Five Star Bank. I don't know if you guys use them at all, but I mean, they're now a huge lender in the mobile home park space. And they basically, one day, the banker took me to lunch. He's like, "Hey, Sam, we really like you as a client, but we'd like you even more if you bought mobile home parks." And
Wow.
like I said, I had no idea what that was. And then I started looking into it. I'm like, listening to podcasts. It was like, at the time, Jefferson Lilly and his partner, I can't Brad Johnson. Anyway, they had a bunch of podcasts, and I started listening and reading everything I could. And I'm like, this sounds really interesting. Bought one community that was about 30 minutes from my house, just to, kind of kick the tires, see if it made sense. And 6 weeks into that, I'm like, yeah, this is what we're doing. I'm going to sell or drop everything else, and we're going all in on mobile home parks. And that's what we did. And that was 2017.
Wow.
And I mean, I think the biggest things that comes to my mind when you made such a drastic switch, and we were pretty novice on mobile home park itself. Well, especially I was. You had a little bit of experience, but 2017 to 2024, 7,000 lots. Wow.
Yeah.
Like that is amazing.
And one of the things that's also amazing, right, is that, and we look at it, you're a true value add investor. Like, you don't buy stabilized parks. I mean, you built 7,000 lots, and you built that equity, I think we like to say, the hard way, right?
The hard way.
Right? So
Yeah.
we tend to do, look at value add too. But I mean, what is it about the type of assets that you look to buy?
Well, hey, I'll tell you what, guys. I wish I could buy those stabilized assets. I mean, right? It's way easier. It's just, my gosh, like, I don't know where you get the money to justify paying those prices, because if you get a loan, like, you're going to pay more for your loan than you're going to get it from your cash flow. What those stabilized deals trade at. So it's not like I wanted to do all that work. I definitely didn't. But it was like the only way I could see that it would make sense and that I could create value. So you're right. I mean, we've, like, if I took our average deal, it's like 100 sites, 65, maybe even 60 to 65% occupied, a lot of deferred problems, and rents that are subsequently below market as well. So there's room there also, but I mean, just tons of elbow grease and hard work to get them turned around, get them fixed up. We've got our own construction company now. I think you guys know that. Just to be able to facilitate doing anything from, like, replacing all the sewer lines to repaving, pouring concrete driveways, renovating homes. We've got 15 guys. All they do is renovate homes, and we send them all over the country. And we just, so that we can have predictability and, like, hey, here's a scope of work. Here's how much it's going to cost. Here's how long it's going to take. And we know kind of like the finish that we're looking for, that we can kind of, again, do it repeatedly. So all things that I never wanted to do or imagine that I would have to do getting into the business, but that's okay. I mean, you do what you need to do.
So is that what the park-owned homes in your community? Like when you buy a park, your plan is that you go in and, well, do you underwrite that you're gonna, hey, we're gonna renovate all the homes, the existing park-owned homes that are there. We're gonna renovate every single one of them to get them up to a certain standard, because there is I guess, a big divergence on how to treat park-owned homes when you buy a park. Like, what do you look to do when you buy that? And has it always been the same, or are you just renovating every home? What's your, operational philosophy on that?
It's definitely changed a little bit. So, early on, we underestimated how much capital it would take to renovate the homes. That probably doesn't surprise you guys. Like anybody that's been in the business, right? I mean, of course, and even what we were doing 5 years ago cost way more than that today, right? So
yeah, he always yells at me at that because Eric handles more on that side. And so when I come in and we're underwriting a deal, I'll say, "Hey, Eric, this should cost this," and he's like, "You don't know."
Frank thinks like the homes should be able to get renovated like in 1 or 2 days max.
Yeah.
No renovation. I want it done in 2 days.
Yeah.
Hey, Frank, when you figure that out, let me know because you can take over my construction company and make that happen.
Well, I mean, if three crews, 8-hour shifts, I mean, it should be able to get done in 2 days.
How hard could it be? Yeah. So, but anyway, to your question, I mean, so we've got a deal that we're about to close, and there's 34 vacant park-owned homes, and I don't have the underwriting in front of me, but we're probably talking $10,000 a home reno on average, and that's part of our raise. It's like because the thing is, like, if we instead, and of course some homes aren't salvageable, right? And we can all agree on that. The frame gets bent, whatever. It's like, hey, there's no use messing with that. That's never going to be right. Nobody's going to be happy living there. But a lot of homes, even a metal on metal, it makes more sense from our perspective to go in and dump $10,000, sometimes more, because if we pull it out, that costs a little money. We bring a new one in and set it up, right? I mean, now you're not counting the new home, you're $30,000 into that exercise. So if instead you spend 10 or maybe even 15 and you totally redo a house that's now more affordable, because this is affordable housing, right? So,
sure.
So it's more affordable. A lot more people could move in there. So that's just kind of our approach, and it's definitely changed a little bit. I would say there's homes that 5 years ago we would have been like, yeah, we're not touching that. Like, let's just pull it out. And that same home, we're going to go figure out how to get that renovated.
So why do you think that's changed? Is just like an evolution to it because of where pricing is, or is it just different strategies because lenders have started to look at maybe that park-owned home income slightly different and giving you some of that value? Where do you fall in on that?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, it's really mostly about the goal of filling up the community with sticky long-term residents. I'd say that half the residents in our communities are Hispanic. I mean, just, that's a rough estimate. And certainly more than half probably of those that move in are Hispanic. And so what we find is we come in and we've got a couple crews working in the community. They're renovating homes. That's actually one of the best ways to sell other homes that we haven't renovated yet. Because we have people that come in, they're like, how much, okay, this home, and how much is it going to be? And a lot of the Hispanic community, either they or their brother, their uncle, or somebody is a contractor and can fix that home, honestly, less than we can. And they're like, well, look, I'll buy that home that you haven't renovated yet for $2,000. And they give us the cash and they're given 30 days to fix the outside and whatever. And we've had a lot of success with that as well. So it's just, from our perspective, the biggest reason that we've gravitated towards that is we found it's the fastest way to fill the community with people that are going to be there a long time. And that's the goal. We just want a full community of people that are happy to live there, can afford to live there, and can be there for a long time.
So are you looking for more of a rental? Are you looking more of selling the home? Are you selling those homes that you're renovating on a rent to own or a lease option? Like what's your strategy for that?
Yeah, and that's probably morphed as well. So we're definitely looking to create homeowners, and so depending on the state and kind of who we have set up on third party financing, I mean, there's a myriad of different answers, but it's all of the above. It's lease option, it's third party financing, it's cash sales, kind of whatever we can do. And sometimes it's, hey, in this state, for whatever reason, we've got it, we're just doing a rental. But we're finding people that are going to be, committed, and we're going to give them 12 months, like, hey, you've got 12 months to convert through third party financing or whatever. So any person we move into any of our communities, we've clarified that there is some sort of path for them to get to be a homeowner, and that's who we're looking for. We don't want to mess with somebody moving in every year and thrashing the home, and now we've got to renovate it again, and right. I mean, that's a lot of brain damage that we're trying to avoid. Not hasn't happened 100%, but we're better today than we used to be, for sure.
Yeah, I think the key to being successful in doing that, Sam, is you're doing the work yourself, right? Going into a new market and try to bring in vendors to renovate homes. It's the difference of, spending 10 to 15,000, from 20 to 25,000, right? And you're not really finding a ton of experienced mobile home contractors, right? So you're typically finding someone who's familiar with, contracting in general, and now you're trying to get them to do work on a home that they have very little or no experience at all, and you're going to pay more, and you're not going to get what you want, right? So
you're not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy.
Yeah, you're not going to be happy. So if you can grow a team and become efficient, and they're willing to travel, I mean, that's key. That's key to your success with that.
And I think that's probably been the biggest evolution in how we look at those park-owned homes since when we first started in the business, where I think we've moved to the point where we'll identify homes and then label them. And if they're a maybe a more recent vintage home where we know that there's a probability that if we sold it that we can get third-party financing, those homes we look to, we'll invest the money in knowing that we can get that money out, and that becomes part of the capitalization of the project. And then you have those homes that maybe are good quality homes, late 80s, early 90s, but you're not getting financing for that. Like a lender is not going to finance a borrower there, but the homes have a value. So the question becomes, how much do you want to invest in that for that return? Is it more valuable to discount maybe the value of that home and offer it out for sale to somebody to come in there because you do want that sticky resident? And then you kind of alluded to it, but each state has a different look at maybe those RTO contracts lately. And so if you're out there and you're investing in a mobile home park, what maybe work in one state might put you in a little bit of a challenge in another. So I've in talking to some operators, we've noticed that some people are a little bit more open to a rental if it's going to convert to home ownership down the road, not necessarily day one, where I think, if you were looking at this at 2017, most people were going to say, hey, put them on an RTO and just step away. And I think you have to kind of read the tea leaves of how that's going to see how you're going to operate that park. I don't think you could go into a one size fits all, right? For each park in each state, right?
Yeah. No, that's right. That's right. We're in 17 different states, and we've got contracts are different for every state. certain addendums and whatever clauses and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's kind of a pain, but it's a reality of what it means to operate a mobile home park business where you're in that many different states. Got to do it.
Do you have a favorite state or a favorite region to operate in?
Yeah, I'd say for the one that definitely comes top of mind for me is Greenville, North Carolina. It's got a special place in my heart. we have 13 communities there. It's just one of those things where we got into the market 5 years ago, and we just kind of were able to meet the right people and kind of build the right network. And so actually 2 of the deals we're about to close are in Greenville. So that'll be parks 14 and 15. And yeah, it's just been an awesome market for us. Anytime you can get that kind of scale in one market, you can just become super efficient and operate really lean and super efficiently. So that'd be no, but it's not like that market is any better than a lot of other markets in the Southeast or Midwest necessarily. It's just, for me, it's been great because we were able to build scale there, and I'd love to do the same thing in some other markets, but it's hard, as you guys know.
So if as you're looking at it, if that's your recent acquisition, I mean, what is it? Obviously you're in that market, so there's probably a little flexibility you have in pricing, right? Because you're willing to maybe pay a little bit more because you know that there's some efficiencies there.
Yeah.
But if you were looking at a new market, how do you go about underwriting a deal or looking at a deal from your perspective? Is it an entry cap rate that's more important to you? Is it, yield on cost after a certain time frame? Like, how are you looking? And then what levers inside that community are you looking to pull on?
No, it's a great question. So we're
I'm taking notes, right? So
now that we've successfully come out the back end with doing Fannie Mae refis and that sort of thing, we have a lot more clarity on some of this. And so, for example, the parks that we're buying in Greenville that we're about to close, that'll be the most we've paid per pad in that market. And I'll just give you some numbers. We're paying $35,000 a pad, which doesn't sound unreasonable, but I mean the rent's only $225, right? So if you look at the entry cap rate or the yield, I mean it looks terrible. It's not good when you're paying $35,000 a pad. But we just refied 3 properties on a Fannie Mae loan in Greenville and got valued at $60,000 a pad.
Wow.
And so we're looking at saying, hey, this is more than we paid. Like we've been paying in the 20s, but now we know what the end game is. All we need to do is do exactly what we did on these other ones, and we'll get the the rents will go up over time. We'll make all these things happen. We've got to fill a few lots, and when we do, we already know what the back end looks like. And this is something we just closed. I mean, the rates today, they're not great. I mean, not compared to 3 years ago. I don't necessarily think they're going down anytime soon, but that's in this market at these rates that, Fannie's giving us $60,000 a pad in that market. Hey, we'll buy at 35 all day long.
Mm-hmm. So listen, there's a lot of questions that we go back and forth, and you hit on something before we jump topics, or like having your construction team, and you built out your whole construction team from that. Yeah, obviously they're your employees, and you're moving them around as needed. Where do you have them focus just on the homes? Are they doing the infrastructure work? Like, how do you line out logistically for that, and allocate them to the communities?
Yeah, no, great question. So, and that's been a work in progress as well. So it's a whole different company. We have our own, operating agreement. We have our own EIN tax filing. We have our own insurance over there. I mean, it is a totally separate company. And within that company, there's really two divisions. One is the homes division, and the other is what we call the infrastructure / development. In the homes division, that's anything from, I've got 3 project managers over there, and they're each geographically focused. Mostly, I mean, look, vast majority of our business at the construction company is for Saratoga Group, not all of it. We're doing work for some banks, and we're looking to start doing some work for some operators. But each one of those guys is geographically focused, and we're trying to get them to where they each have 6 active crews in the field. We've got, right now we have 7 crews altogether. So we only have, like, one guy has 3 and the other have 2, right? So we still have some. We're still trying to build out those teams, but well, I guess maybe the one guy actually has another one as well. But anyway, and so those, all they're focused on is the renovation of the homes, the acquisition of the homes. So they go, they're out on Facebook, they're sourcing homes and working with some of our bank partners to source homes from them as well. And then of course, moving and setting the homes. One thing that we're missing there, we don't have our own set crews. We do have a toter, and we're building a set crew. But
Eric actually asked for a toter for Christmas.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. The toter business it's tough. It's tough because the licensing across the interstate lines and all that stuff. It's I don't know.
I don't know. You don't know if it's worth it yet, right?
I'm not sure it's worth it.
Yeah.
And if you talk to different people, some people tell you it's not worth it. But I'm kind of stubborn, so I probably need to figure that out for myself. But it could be that it's not worth it. We'll see.
Yeah, I happen to believe it's probably not worth it. That's just, I think if you have the right crew in each state, that is being reasonable for you, and they're there, and you can keep them busy. You'll probably, for us anyway, we're I'm not interested really at the moment trying to get into that, but I would love to see if you can make that work.
No, and I think you're absolutely right, Eric. So we're actually, where we're trying to do it is North Carolina, because we've got right now about 150 empty sites there that we're trying to bring, mostly new homes into. So I mean, it's like, okay, here's a whole, right? I mean, if you set up a set crew, they'd have work for 18 months at least, just kind of full time. And then from there, it's like, okay, we know where the destination is. We probably know where the factories are. I mean, like you said, if you're trying to have crews that are like, moving homes over here and across these state lines and all over the place like that, I don't think that's going to work. But at least if we can set it up this one way and get the experience there and kind of wash, rinse, repeat, and then we can, from there, it's like, okay, now let's do South Carolina, or let's do Tennessee or Georgia or whatever.
And then see if that helps drive down some costs along the way. Because in a business, this is a business of nickels and dimes, and doing all these things, if you could save some nickels and dimes, it obviously translates to better returns for your investors, or translates to, more efficiencies you can offer to your residents.
Absolutely.
You have mentioned, like, you have 150 lots in North Carolina, and I know I've heard you say that you're looking to bring in 200 new homes next year, right? Yeah. So, and I have this conversation with a number of different operators. How do you handle the sales aspect of it? So you're bringing in new homes. You have it centralized? Do you have it decentralized? Like, how are you positioning that inside your communities or across the board on your platform?
For us, up till now, it's been very decentralized. There's some things that we centralize. Like, we have one person in Kansas City, and she is like, every loan app that comes in, she's on it, and she's working with 4 or 5 different, third-party financing companies, super organized, and she's like attack dog mode. I mean, she makes it happen. if the people, they got to get their stuff together and get all their documentation. But so that part of it is centralized. Other than that, the rest of it is pretty decentralized. Like it's very kind of local advertising. We have people that at the central office that'll help with putting the marketing material together and that sort of thing. We have some templates, but we're incentivizing the community managers and the district managers to move homes, and we're giving them tools, but we're really kind of letting them run with that and some are better than others, obviously, but that's what we're doing. What about you guys?
So it's, we take a centralized approach, and what the biggest thing is being able to track the data. Yeah. Right. So for us, there's multiple touch points, but first it's centralized by us. So this way we can get the inbound call, because, our managers, they've got four key functions, right? They're on the ground. They're maintaining culture. They're handling sales. They're doing collections. They're doing quasi project management, right? Overseeing stuff. So if we can help out on the back end, we could take the calls, take the inbound, schedule the showings, and the manager can be the brand ambassador on the ground. But then we can follow up and ensure there's some connectivity with the back office and the front, and the front end, to make sure that prospect can see a seamless transition to the community. And I've talked to operators doing both ways. It's just, we've noticed that when managers are there on the ground taking calls, you probably don't get the lead, right? Because it's probably the least important thing in their day to do is like, hey, let me say John Smith came in and saw, this unit or that unit. But we can kind of monitor that from our side, and then we could track it and see exactly what's happening, what ads are working, what ads aren't, what responsive rates we're getting.
Okay. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much, but this is a definite pain point for me. So how do you guys advertise? Like where are you advertising?
So we're aggressively advertising through all social media platforms, right? So we have a centralized location, and then just on the local community side as well. We find that that's done well. Obviously, we're on MH Village, we're on Zillow, we're on Realtor where it can be, but through social media platforms, we'll get the highest quantity of leads that'll come in on a weekly basis.
And when you say social media, are you talking Facebook Marketplace?
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram.
Okay. But on because we're getting the vast majority of ours through Facebook. Are you syndicating there, or how are you know what I mean? Because Facebook is designed to be so localized, and that's where we've struggled to figure out, without having our managers set up a profile that's local, how to get those ads out there. So we could track them and monitor them.
Yeah, correct. So we can do that through those accounts, and we can monitor through Meta Business. They have actually a pretty robust program on the back end to be able to monitor those ads. I mean, that's what we've found, that we've had pretty good success with that, in terms of the leads that we're able to get on a regular basis.
Okay. Well, not now, but maybe we could take a little bit of a deeper dive together on that. I would love to do that.
Absolutely. One thing I just want to mention, because I've heard you say this a couple of times, and it resonates, right? Especially for those who are looking to scale a business, right? And I've heard you say this, that your goal is to become the most unimportant person in your business. Like, what do you mean by that, and how do you get there?
Oh, I probably read too many of these books that talk about, kind of replacing yourself, and my whole team and, a lot of the company know that I want to do that. Like, I don't want it to be about me. And so it's, basically, if you set up, to me, it's like you set the right processes and then the right incentives And of course, you have to have the right people. But if you can get those three things, then why am I needed? Right? If people know, hey, this is what we're doing, they've got the resources that they need, and they're trustworthy and very capable people. I'd rather, and it happens all the time. I'll get people will be like, hey, Sam, we need you to jump in on this, and I'm like, I don't know anything about. I mean, I might know a little bit, but I definitely don't know as much as Cynthia or Vanessa or Steve, right? I mean, and that's my goal, is to have different experts in the company that are going to know more than me about any set it different, and I'm going to have to know a little bit, but I want to get to the point that I don't know anything. I mean, other than like I want to be the investor in Saratoga Group that gets the quarterly report and says, "Hey, 2 thumbs up. It's going great, guys.
Thanks for the check.
We'll see you in 3 months."
Yeah,
that's the goal.
I think that's what we struggle with. And listen, I know,
Well, I think Frank really struggles with that. Frank likes that theory, and maybe if you keep saying it, it'll rub off on him a little bit, because he talks about it a lot, but I don't think he's really ready for that yet.
I think it's the entrepreneurial challenge, right? Because and I relate it to, I don't know if you've ever seen the series Band of Brothers, right? And I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's on and there's a scene where like Dick Winters, he's the guy, he came to a lieutenant, becomes a captain, then all of a sudden he's like the major, and they're taking over a town, and he used to run Easy Company, and now he's back in a higher position, and the lieutenant he has going forward just stops the whole advance, and so he's stunted, and he wants to run to lead the charge, and the person, the colonel above him, is like, you can't go, like that's not your job, you have to send somebody else in there, right? And I think as an entrepreneur, we all think of ourselves as Captain Winters. We see a problem, we want to go run because we've done it, and those are our people, and we want to get the best outcome. And then you have to struggle a fight with yourself to back up and say, I'm going to let somebody else go, I'm going to give them direction, and they might do it a different way, but it's going to get to the same spot. And I think that comes to your point. You got to trust that you've put the right people in the spots to do that. And even if it means having maybe something happen that you don't want to have. So to your point, yeah, we do struggle with that, but to get to 7,000 lots, right, you have to be able to pull yourself out, because I'm sure you can't be the guy that's going through every one of those homes saying, hey, we're going to paint it this color, we're going to fix this molding, right? Are you still doing that, by the way?
Definitely not. And don't get me wrong, I struggle with it as well. I'm a lot better about it, but what I've found is, you're right. To your point, Frank and Eric, whoever you're having do, whatever the task is, they're definitely not going to do it the same way as you. And probably objectively, sometimes the way they do it isn't as productive, but actually sometimes their methodology is a lot better than whatever I would have done or whatever I would have thought to do. And then to me, that you take that and you throw it into the consciousness of your organization. It's like, okay, all of a sudden, because we have more people involved, more people that are making decisions, like we're more informed as a company because of this new person and their new insight and their new perspective and kind of what they brought to it. So even though, because the ones that aren't as effective, like that'll get flushed out too. We're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, they did it this way. That's maybe not as effective. And then we all figure it out. And it's like, okay, well, we're not doing that anymore. But that the other new idea never would have percolated to the top if we didn't allow other people to master their own domain and make those decisions.
Sure. So
I think as you get bigger also, there's only so much bandwidth you could cover, right? So if you're trying to touch a little bit of everything, you're only touching it a little bit, right? So you're not going to be as efficient at it if you're touching a little bit of it. So you need to have one person who's going into those homes constantly and making the decisions and putting the proposals together, not buying a community, going down there, taking a quick glance at it, and trying to get back to the office and looking at pictures. And it's just, it works only to a certain degree.
Correct.
It only works to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Correct. So last question, not to put you on the hot spot, but what's one thing that you wish you would have known sooner in this business, in this space?
Boy, I mean, there's a lot of things I've learned. I think, underestimating how difficult a turnaround can be. I mean, we know now. we definitely know now. And so we kind of go eyes wide open into a new acquisition. We're not afraid. I mean, one of these that we're buying, it's 42% occupied. I mean, so we're not afraid of it still, but we underestimated how difficult that could be. And this is the way I think about it is, let's say you're buying the 40% occupied community. It is orders, I don't say orders of magnitude, but it is much more difficult to go from 40% to 70% than it is to go 70% to full. That, like, you need a certain amount of inertia. You need a certain amount of kind of critical mass in a community. And my gosh, if that isn't hard to do, going from 40 to 70.
And you have to change the culture when you're 40.
Yeah. And I think the key is there, regardless of how quick you move and how much money you put into it, you need time. Time has to happen. It has to go through, 12 to 24 months, right?
Yeah.
That's the key with that. That's going to take time, regardless of whatever you do.
And that was a great point, Sam. And I want to thank you very much for being part of this program and being part of this. I mean, if you've been listening out there, this has been a wealth of knowledge for anybody who's looking to scale their business in the MHP space, or anybody looking to get into the MHP space. And if anybody wanted to reach out to you, Sam, or find out about the Saratoga Group, where would they contact you, reach out to you, find out more about what you're doing?
Awesome. Yeah, Frank and Eric, hey, pleasure. I enjoyed the conversation. Love chatting with you guys. And like I said, I feel like I learned a ton today. So I'll follow up on a couple of those things. So easiest way to get a hold of me, email sam@saratogagroup.com or on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And so it's just LinkedIn/Sam Hales, or look for Saratoga Group on LinkedIn, and we're pretty active on there.
Okay. And even while Sam was talking about turnarounds, don't forget that the new season of Trailer Park Turnaround is coming out on YouTube in January. So make sure that you're aware of that. If you're following that series on YouTube, give us a like. And if you've liked this episode, share it, and save it and share it, and with somebody who might be interested in investing in the MHP space. Eric, any last words?
No, nice talking with you again, Sam. Thank you for the wealth of knowledge that you shared with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, I'm gonna put a plug for your Trailer Park Turnarounds. I think I've watched every episode so far. You guys do a great job, super entertaining, and shooting it straight. So love it. It's been fun.
Well, thanks for watching, Sam. And maybe one day we can get an episode where we're collaborating on a park together. Fun. I would love that. Until next time, everybody, happy investing. Speak with you soon.